Oh, I got a juicy video for you today. We're going to be talking about the AI bubble and the signs that are starting to show. And frankly, it's starting to get scary because I am in the market. So this thing popping is actually a negative for me, but I simply can't look away. It's like a train wreck that just keeps on going. What AI bubble? Nvidia's strong earnings signal there's more room to grow. We shall march forward, folks. This man, look, whatever you think of him, he really got the world, in his palm. If his company collapses, the whole thing collapses, okay? So everybody relies on this man's company doing well. Did you have that? Was that an idea you had? I mean, if you had invested in his company back in, let's say, 2016, if you had invested, let's say 20K or whatever, you'd be a millionaire right now. That's all you had to do. Insanity. This man really generated a lot of wealth, but we are definitely on an edge. The US stock market were poised for liftoff on Thursday, right after a strong earning report from computer chip giant Nvidia. Everybody was celebrating, signaled that there is still plenty of room to run in the artificial intelligence boom that has powered the market higher for much of the year. I mean, the whole market is pretty much this, right? And when we got the good news, I mean, the market went absolutely ballistic. Everyone was happy. I was happy. Like I said, I'm in the market. I want this thing to do well. But hey, eventually reality hits and this thing is going down as we speak. As I record this, the crash has started. Well, you can call it a crash or you can call it a small bump, but any earning or any positive return has been squashed. And that is, peculiar. Why would that happen? I mean, they pretty much beat the estimate, right? Strong earnings. Why is that? Why is this thing going down? Keep in mind, this is a $4.41 trillion market cap company. Insanity. And it's making moves like this. I mean, this is a market cap larger than whole continents, okay? This is so much wealth concentrated in a single company that if it goes away, this is not a hole that can be plugged with really anything other than hyperinflation, right? Re-inflating everything away. And because so much of the market is dependent on Nvidia and its surrounding hemisphere, right? Nvidia not doing good has a cascading effect. And as you can see, and Nvidia weighs very heavily in the S&P 500, and which is the 500 companies, but it's weighted based on the market cap and whatnot. So Nvidia going down means the whole market goes down. And keep in mind, a lot of people, right? Most of these retirement funds and most of the government funds, etc., they're all investing in these index funds, right? Such as the S&P 500. So this going down actually affects a lot of people. This is something that everybody looks at. This is the most diversified, the safest, and yet it's making massive moves like this in a single day. Very, very bearish indeed. Now, what is the canary in the coal mine, right? So we had a few. Remember this headline? White House admits key economic data may never be released and blames the shutdown. And some are saying, well, it will be released, but then, they're working on it because the government was shut down, etc. I mean, do you think it's going to be trustworthy? I mean, obviously, everybody will have to accept it. We have no choice but to accept the government data. It is what it is, but it just adds uncertainty, doubt. We don't need this. And I didn't really keep track of much of this, but I believe they started to blame the Democrats and this. It's like, man, come on, man. This is not good, okay? Nobody wants to hear that. This is extremely bearish. Investors, right? Investors depend on this, but also the Fed, right? The Fed also relies on this. A lot of people depend on this, including myself, because we're all thinking, okay, is the Fed going to increase rates? Is it not going to increase rates? Yada, yada, yada. And Trump said, nuh-uh, I ain't gonna release none of that. So he's really trying to not get this released. And the problem is it's being done so blatantly. If it was more tactically done, perhaps you can get away with it. But it's just too blatant. And all these things are just so much uncertainty, right? Why would you remain in the market? Think about it. If you're about to retire, right? Let's say you're in your 60s or 50s or whatever, and you're about to retire. Would you keep the money in the market? You'll probably only keep a little bit of money in the market, especially after it has run up so high, right? So these things just don't add up to something that adds security. And another sign is the receivable is getting, the receivables are getting higher and higher. So how Nvidia's 33.4 billion in uncollected revenue proves the circular financing cartel is building an accounting fraud. This is a big word. And this was shared by this person on Twitter, but he wasn't the only one saying that. This was said on the earnings call. A lot of people, when they looked at the balance sheet, everybody saw this, right? Everybody was talking about it. It is not nothing, right? So Nvidia invests in AI startup, right? So this is the strategy. So Nvidia invests in an AI startup. Those AI startup buy cloud services, right? Obviously, and the cloud providers use that money to buy Nvidia chips. And Nvidia books this as revenue. And essentially, this is the circular economy people are talking about. So it's essentially, if you have it in a chart, right? Nvidia invests in a startup, and then this startup uses a cloud service, and then this cloud service buys from Nvidia, right? This is not good. No real value is created, right? And a lot of these companies are pre-revenue, are already valued in billions of dollars. This is the issue, right? If you look at one of the, I believe was the chief technical officer, her company is now valued in billions of dollars. Sure, you could say, okay, she created something, an open AI, et cetera, but the company hasn't generated any revenue. What are you talking about? This is insane, right? And everybody's jumping on everything because you don't want to miss out. And that's the problem of these bubbles. People are like, well, you want to get out. But if you get out, you're missing out on these crazy runs, right? And for those of you who know this movie, this is, I believe it was called The Accountant. It was more interesting than I thought because the premise is that an accountant is essentially going to, review a company's balance sheet and everything, and he figures out a big secret, right? And it's, I believe he's like autistic and stuff, so he's like very peculiar and very specific about how he does things, like how he's blowing his fingers, right? But it's such a good movie. It really blew me away, way more than I expected it. But that's how it feels like, there's some sketchy stuff going on here. The proof is mathematical. Accounts receivable, $33.4 billion. Inventory, $19.8 billion, rising during a quote-unquote shortage. So this inventory, because everyone is saying there's a shortage, right? Even Elon Musk is saying, look, there's simply put not enough. And, they're trying to make their own chips because it's just going too slow and this and that, right? So that's a different aspect, but it's still related to, all these chips. And so there does appear to be this shortage. But then you ask yourself, okay, well, what is this, right? Cloud commitments, $26 billion, doubled in 19 days. So these numbers are just ridiculous, okay? It's like you just scratch your head, like, okay, what's going on? Total capital trapped, $79.2 billion. Total cash generated last year, $64.8 billion. The discrepancy here is simply put too big. I mean, what the heck, right? Now, granted, yes, we are in a bubble. It is pumping, and that means there's a lot of demand, but it's just so sketchy, right? It's just so hot. It's just running hot. Doesn't seem sustainable at all. And here is the inventories visualized here. Of course, it's dramatized. It looks very dramatic. Again, this could be justified, but it's just like another sign where you're like, interesting, very interesting. And, last I need to tap the sign. If Nvidia goes down, everything else goes down, okay? Because it affects everybody. So this is the thing. They go up together and they come down together. The come down is going to come. This is inevitable. Whatever goes up must come down. There's simply put no way around it. But the question is when, right? You want to kind of time this thing. So, I mean, it's starting to get heated to the point that nobody really believes. And I think another canary in the coal mine is Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin has been going down since October. So as far as Bitcoin is concerned, the deflating aspect has already started. Bitcoin is now going sub 90K, sub 90K, right? So that's not good. Right now it's at 86K or whatever. It's just not good. And it was $114,000 back in October. I mean, that's a dramatic decline. That is not good. And why do I think Bitcoin is a canary in the coal mine? I think that it is because Bitcoin is a free and open market, right? Unlike all the other markets, which are pretty much cornered by small interests, right? So you have these huge funds that have these indexes, huge funds that hold all these stocks. So a small group of people control the overwhelming majority of the stocks. They can move things, etc., right? And Bitcoin is completely open, free, and relatively fair, right? As far as if you compare to other markets. So it's very hard for someone to just pump Bitcoin unless they really dump a lot of money into it. But generally speaking, Bitcoin, it's very hard to manipulate it, especially in the modern era. In the past, it was easier for exchanges to manipulate it, but now everyone is kind of scared, so they just watch the price go as it goes. So I think Bitcoin is definitely the last free market available still, right? Very libertarian-esque market, a free-for-all. So I think it's a good indication, in my opinion, to look at to really understand what's going on. And some people are saying, look, it's already done, right? Look, this is a chart that shows kind of how the rallies goes and how they collapse. And here is where people are saying we are. They're saying we are in the denial phase, okay? That the collapse has already started, at least in the Bitcoin market, and the rest of the market is simply put gonna follow suit at a later date. But hey, what do you think about that? Let me know in the comment section below. And I wanna give a special shout out to the Patreons. Salute, soldier.